Well, thank you for joining. Yes, I got it. Thank you, Erin, for joining us. Erin is the policy director for Seattle City Council member Teresa Mosqueda. She will talk about the recent neighborhood residential name change passed by the council last year, changing the designation of areas within Rainier Beach and other neighborhoods from single family to neighborhood residential. Erin will review the policy, next steps, timelines, and attempt to answer any questions we have on how this change will affect our neighborhood, Rainier Beach. Take it away, Erin.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for having me. I wish we had more time to go around and do introductions because it's really great to see all your faces here, and appreciate the opportunity to come talk about this policy and some of Councilmember Mosqueda's priorities as we look ahead to the comprehensive plan. So if there are any burning questions that come up, feel free to just, I don't know if you have protocols here, but raise the hand or just interject, and happy to take pause to answer things as they come up. But and thank you for reaching out to me several months ago about wanting to hear from our office about the neighborhood residential legislation that was passed last year. And glad that we had a chance to make this date work. And also thank you for accommodating my schedule and letting me go at the top of the agenda. So the neighborhood residential proposal, which was passed by the City Council last year, updates the zoning language and planning language that Seattle uses. So throughout our planning documents, our land use code and our comprehensive plan, to change the designation single family, so the name single family, to neighborhood residential. So at the very top of this, I just want to make it clear, this wasn't a zoning change. So it doesn't change what's actually allowed in those zones, but it updates the language to better reflect what is already in these neighborhoods. And so just giving a little bit of background on why we chose to pursue this policy and the timing. In 2018, the Seattle Planning Commission issued a Neighborhoods for All report. And I'm happy to put the link in the chat because it's a very, very great comprehensive look at how Seattle grows, how we plan our neighborhoods, and how we can be more inclusive. And it contained a number of recommendations on how we can have more inclusive planning in Seattle. And one of the recommendations was that we should update our language and rename single family areas to neighborhood residential areas to create a zoning designation that promotes the intended form and scale of buildings while being more equitable, inclusive. And so to break that somewhat wonky language down, over time, Seattle neighborhood zones have become increasingly more restrictive. So 100 years ago, there weren't really restrictions on apartment buildings being built across the city, but over time, we've increased the restrictions to where now 75% of our residential land does not allow apartment buildings. However, in these neighborhoods, there are multifamily units that were built before increasingly restrictive zoning took hold. There are even corner stores. And so, and actually Councilmember Mosqueda lived in one of those apartment buildings that sort of was grandfathered into an area that eventually became a single family area. And so on one hand, the designation single family doesn't really accurately reflect what's currently in these neighborhoods. And on the other hand, we know it's not just single families that live on lots, whether it's a standalone house with an ADU or whether it's a duplex. It's not really accurate to say that just single families are living in these neighborhoods. And so we really wanted to try to sort of level set and update our zoning language, especially as we're heading into the major comprehensive plan update. And so I'll pause there because I know I said a lot and just want to give an opportunity for questions or comments if folks had anything. No questions. Okay. And so Rainier Beach was one neighborhood among a variety. And I'm going to put another link in the chat, which is the page, the policy page on Councilmember Mosqueda's website that talks a little bit about, it goes in a little more depth about the policy, but there were 17 neighborhoods whose specific neighborhood plans still used the term single family. And so those neighborhood plans were updated to adopt the updated language, which is neighborhood residential. So the zoning itself, what is allowed in these areas based on current law does not change, but the language changes. And as we head into the major comprehensive plan update, which the city is kicking off the process this year, Councilmember Mosqueda is really hoping to see how we can actually look at our planning and zoning to update what is allowed in these areas, and really starting with an accurate conversation about what's there currently. So sort of setting the stage and making sure that our language is accurate as we go into those conversations.
That's awesome. Yeah, it does seem to me that single family is a dinosaur term with the, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that comment. I wanted to say single family zoning has not, although we have increased what we're calling single family zoning, when we adopted ADU legislation to allow backyard cottages, we actually got rid of single family zoning because we allow more than one household or family to live on a lot. So it was sort of technically not accurate, as well as sort of not accurate in practice.
Erin, I had a question. Is there any thought on the impact on the schools and how we'll address more children in the schools?
You mean through any potential zoning changes that would happen through the comprehensive plan update?
Right. And
Yeah,
the
so
ADUs. Anytime you put two houses
Yeah.
where there used to be one, you potentially double the kids.
So just to be very clear, even though I've already reiterated this, it's a common thing that I've heard is just confusion about whether what the impact of this is on the ground of this single family proposal, the neighborhood residential proposal. And this doesn't actually add more households. But looking ahead to the major comprehensive plan update that will be adopted in 2024, that is the process for looking at the range of impacts. Currently, the Department of Planning and Community Development is gearing up to kick off their environmental impact study scoping. I know this is actually a very sophisticated group, but I still like to strive to de-wonkify language as much as possible. But this is the environmental review process that is required prior to adopting any policy change under the comprehensive plan. So that is what will scope impacts to a range of different environmental factors. And so that's really the opportunity to talk about schools. And I believe the comprehensive plan, while schools are not under the city of Seattle jurisdiction, I believe the comprehensive plan does look at sort of what the neighborhood amenities are, such as schools, and what impacts of different zoning changes would be on that. So that would be something that would happen through the comprehensive plan process, which will be unfolding for the next 2 years at a nice glacial pace.
I have a question. I had thought that Rainier Beach was rezoned as an urban village, and so we can expect a lot of density. And what concerns me about that is that Rainier was just turned into 2 lanes, and there's consideration by SDOT to close Lake Washington Boulevard, and we have the light rail station that's above ground as opposed to below ground. So are we an urban village? Can we expect more density? How's that being integrated into transportation and amenity planning? Or is am I wrong? Are we not going to be a West Seattle Junction? So if you could just speak to what we can expect, that would be great.
I can speak to some of that, and then partially probably direct you to others who can speak to some pieces as well. So in terms of transportation planning, that's a really great cue to mention that alongside the comprehensive plan update, Seattle is also embarking on a major transportation planning effort, which we're calling the Transportation Integrated Plan. And it's the first time that Seattle has really, we've always had the bike master plan and the pedestrian master plan and the bus plan and the freight plan. And so this is the first time we're saying, actually, we need to look at all of these plans under one umbrella and have an integrated plan. And obviously on the south end, safety is a huge issue, as you mentioned, along Rainier Avenue in particular. And so that is, that transportation planning that you're talking about, what are the impacts of all the change that Seattle is undergoing, is a place where that's going to be hashed out, and hopefully we'll come up with a very cohesive vision for that as that planning process unfold. So that is just now kicking off. And I think it's a great thing for you all to kind of have on your radars and plug into, particularly because we have a lot of safety inequities where South Seattle, experiences disproportionate safety impacts around street safety. Your core question is Rainier Beach an urban village? And I'm actually just going to pull up the map of urban villages because I don't trust myself to answer accurately right off the cuff. There are multiple urban villages, I think, within Rainier Beach area as a whole, but someone on this call actually might be able to answer that. Does anyone have? Let's see here. Here's the urban village maps. And the piece that you're kind of getting at is, currently in Seattle's growth strategy, we direct all residential growth and commercial growth to the urban villages. And I believe there are 28 urban villages across the city. Oh, sorry if I missed a hand. I will, hi Danielle, before I launch into the whole growth strategy, give a pause for you.
I just wanted to let you guys know that I am working with Seattle Transportation, Department of Transportation right now with Katie Bell, and we're doing focus groups for to talk about the concerns of the safety improvement in Rainier Beach. The focus groups are about 45 minutes to an hour, and they pay each person for participating $25, but we want to hear from you guys. We want to know where your concerns are and where the issues are, and we can't do that without having a meeting. And we do have a presentation that we do provide. If you want us to do one next month at the next meeting, we could do that with the group. It takes about 45 minutes, just depending on how many questions you guys have, but it doesn't take no more than an hour. So if you're interested, we want to hear those are the things that we want to hear, because we are working on some projects, and part of that is with Vision Zero, and we want to be able to make the neighborhood safer. So if you are interested in doing that, you can put us on your calendar for next month. Just let me know, and I'll make a Zoom meeting so that we can have that presentation with SDOT. Thank you.
That'd be great. Let us
Thank
get
you,
back to you on
Danielle.
that, Danielle.
Someone will be in touch, Danielle. Thank you.
My PDF is loading slowly, but I think I am getting closer to an answer, which is that Rainier Beach is its own urban village. And I just kind of want to be able to lay out sort of what are the nearby urban villages, because as I said, neighborhood, residential and commercial growth, the vast majority of it is directed to Seattle's urban villages. I believe those are like roughly 15% of the residential land. So the concern that we have is that these neighborhoods are kind of under disproportionate growth pressures, which also come with displacement pressures, unfortunately. And so Meanwhile, there's a large swath, 75% of our city's land. You can only currently build a standalone house with an ADU. Here's the urban village. And the result has been the sort of all of our pressure is going into these urban villages, while also we're not creating enough housing to accommodate everyone who needs housing in Seattle. And this is not just a Seattle issue, this is happening across the state. Washington State over the last 10 years added twice as many jobs as housing units. And so we are, and this is also a national issue that we're experiencing. And the result is, of course, what we're all seeing, which is, an inadequate supply is causing downward pressure on our housing market, pushing those with the least out and skyrocketing prices. So as we try to sort of get a grasp on this, we know that we need to allow more housing options across the city. So I guess as I transition into sort of what's next for Councilmember Mosqueda and what is she going to be prioritizing through this comprehensive plan process, it really is sort of how do we look at adding, allowing more housing all across the city, and how do we tackle displacement, and how do we provide resources and policy changes for communities to support rooting communities in place who are experiencing the greatest displacement pressure. So I will again pause there, and if there are any hands I'm missing, or if anyone has anything they'd like to add or any questions.
I guess I'd like to, Rainier Beach is a pretty large neighborhood. And, some are areas are more commercial than others. I guess, I'm just wondering, in the parts of the neighborhood that are, single family homes, detached, homes, what's the likelihood that 4-story apartments will be put in next door?
It
Yeah.
depends right now on a couple things. One is, what is the current zoning? And so that dictates what is allowed there. And that is different throughout. It's not one zoning type throughout Rainier Beach, right? So you'd have to look at the specific lot. But the other thing is, it really just depends currently on investment. And so, for instance, if there is an opportunity for the Office of Housing to acquire a parcel and build affordable housing there, or, and they don't typically acquire like a lot that would have a house on it and redevelop it. They would acquire empty land or maybe a building that they could transition into affordable housing. But then it's, aside from that, it's really the private market, and we don't control that. It really depends on, builders' decisions to redevelop. And so the first thing is, does the zoning allow it?
Okay, so where would we find out where one's house is, what it's zoned at, and what that means?
Yeah, there is a map. There's an interactive map that the city has that shows zoning, I think based on parcel. You can search. So let me see if I can pull that up. And once again, I'm sure my computer will be very slow to respond, but that is something that you can search through the zoning map book.
Is that just the regular King County parcel thing that you would look up the tax records on and that type of stuff that tells you the zoning as well?
That probably also would, but there's a specific citywide zoning map that if you go to that link, there are these kind of quadrants that you can kind of find where generally is the parcel, and then open the map book for that area, and then it'll, I think, let you zoom in from there.
And then will it tell you what that zoning means? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. what does it mean? There's like, well, now there is no such thing as single family. It's called neighborhood residential.
Right.
But there's also like LR1, which is low rise 1, or LR2, which is low rise 2, which, you know, is some version of, you know,
Okay.
townhouses or duplexes, small scale.
Okay. So by 2024, with this plan, it may say that an area zone LR1 is now going to be LR2 or 3 or whatever. In order to,
it
go
gets
ahead,
even
I'm
more
sorry.
complex through the
Of
comprehensive
course.
plan, because of course there's nothing simple and straightforward about planning, but the comprehensive plan is sort of the major document that lays out the vision, right? It's the transportation element, it's the climate element, it is parks and trees and all of these things and how they fit together. And then we have our land use map that is something that we adopt concurrently with the comprehensive plan. And so
Okay.
the land use map is really what says what's allowed where. And so if we are to, which we hope that when the comprehensive plan rolls around, we're really talking about how do we reform our zoning to be more equitable. And if we were to adopt a new zoning package, that would happen through the land use map. And so that's
And
what,
that, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, just to clarify, that document is what dictates what you can build where.
Okay. And that will be part of the 2024 comprehensive plan.
That's right.
Got it.
Yep. You know, clearly this conversation and myself as a messenger is not adequate to really lay out all of what is involved in comprehensive planning. And I'm very happy to, you know, to see whether we could have the Department of Planning and Community Development come and chat with you. And I imagine they'll be reaching out anyway as this comprehensive plan process kicks off. But, you know, I would just encourage everyone to have this on your radars. I'm going to drop yet another link because it is, I think that this comprehensive plan update is sort of our once in a generation opportunity to tackle climate change adequately, to really sort of try to get a handle on the housing affordability crisis that we have been in the midst of for so long. And so these huge issues that we know we need to act on, and we know that we need to sort of be planning for these transportation and safety issues. I think there's just a lot at stake in this process. And so it's going to be a very important moment in Seattle policy.
Erin, I've got a question too, and I guess a comment. Part of what I know our area in Rainier Beach faces is the federal tax advantages of dumping money into undeveloped areas. And so we're seeing big investment companies and wealthy people buying up a lot of the housing. But there really doesn't seem to be anything that the state or the city level can do to stop that.
Are you talking about the opportunity zone thing?
Yes,
Yeah. So that is something that I know when they first announced that program that we try, you know, we didn't have the ability to say, no, we don't want that in our community, but try to at least sort of shape it. And I think, you know, that's a very, very important point that you're raising, is just the role of outside investment, real estate speculation, and how that factors into the kind of growth that's happening in Seattle. And I think sort of separate from the comprehensive plan process, one thing we've been really working to increase is just being able to take land off the speculative market. So with the Office of Housing, we've been over the years working to increase the amount of money that they're able to spend on land acquisitions, by just removing that cap and saying if there are opportunities to take land off the speculative market that we can work on with our community partners just do it. And then with the Seattle Rescue Plan dollars, the COVID relief dollars that we received from the federal government, we were able to stand up what we are calling a rapid acquisition program, which is finding new market rate apartment buildings that we can grab off the market and convert them into permanently affordable housing. Just there's kind of been a little bit of a downturn in the large multifamily market just during COVID. And so being able to use those dollars to take land off the market, and then looking ahead to the housing levy renewal, which is up next year, we're really thinking about how do we leverage this as an opportunity. You know, we've always thought about building housing, but really being able to acquire market rate housing and making it permanently affordable, because we know that we are competing with large investors, and that speculative real estate investment is at an all-time high nationally. So,
Yeah.
and the federal government is in many ways supporting it, even though I think this administration does recognize it's a problem. It's hard to shift the levers on some of those policies so quickly. So. Danielle, is your hand up from before? Yeah.
No, I just
Okay.
wanted to make a comment on the housing in Rainier Beach. And I'm working with Rainier Beach Action Coalition with Gregory Davis, who we call the mayor of Rainier Beach. And he is really working with the community to keep affordable housing in Rainier Beach. And the apartment complexes that you see coming up, like Polaris, and there's one unit on Rainier next to the Rose Street Apartments, which is part of Bellwether Housing and Mount Baker Housing. They're coming up with more affordable housing than the old Thunderbird building that's coming up. That's going to be Mount Baker Housing, and they're putting affordable housing there as well. And they are creating larger units, as well as Elizabeth Thomas Housing, which is on Renton Avenue and Henderson. And so they are putting a lot of affordable housing to keep families here so that they are not gentrified. So most of the larger apartments that you see are affordable. Some of the smaller ones that you see in the side streets, like 46 off of Rose, there's a few buildings that are coming up that are not affordable, but most of the large ones that are coming are affordable. So hands down.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for all that work, and to the Rainier Beach Action Coalition. You know, as much as there is a lot to be concerned about, there is, as Danielle said, so much to celebrate. Over the last few years, just our efforts to really ramp up affordable housing production by, you know, using all the resources at our disposal, and with the passage of the Jumpstart progressive revenue package that dedicates 2/3 of revenues for affordable housing. In the pipeline right now, under development, we have 5,400 affordable units, with 4,000 of those opening this year and next year. So that is, you know, that is not all we need. We need much more than that, but it's also significantly more than we've ever done in the past. And so we really are sort of building the infrastructure and the policy and, you know, the funding to scale. And so I think that's where the upcoming housing levy renewal is really going to be important. And we'll continue to work to try and get every resource that we can to continue that great work. So thank you so much for that. Well, I don't want to, this is not why I came to talk, but you're definitely getting me excited and making me not want to pull myself away, because this is the stuff that we sort of live and breathe for. But I do know you have an agenda, and I just want to, I guess, see if there are any other thoughts. Oh, it looks like Joe, you have your hand up.
I just had a question, and it's a tiny bit off topic. It's on housing. Did the recent media on the tiny house village right by Rainier Beach House, did that embarrass powers that be to where instead of guarding it against people sleeping there, it's actually being used. I just thought the media was great. And I'm hoping
Yeah,
that might have created something that made sense.
I can't speak for the internal reactions of powers that be, but I can say I think that helped to raise awareness and you know, all I can say is there were many conversations happening behind the scenes also to try to push for that, and so we're very pleased at that outcome as well. And so
Thank you.
Erin, thank you very much. I think we learned a lot, and I suspect we'll have more questions and we'll contact you.
would love that. And you know, just I'm glad to have made the connection, and please reach out with anything, and I'll be reaching out as well now that we all are connected. If there are policies coming up and such, we'll be happy to loop you all in.
great.
And I'll put my email here in the chat as well as I sign off. So feel free to reach out anytime. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Take
Erin.
care. Have a good night. Bye.
Good night, Erin. Thank you.
I think we'll also take one other item out of order just because it's an important one that we need to discuss tonight. And that's on the day of service, May 21st. And I'll turn it first over to Alan to tell us the latest on the Waters Median, and Jessica step in too.
Okay. And before we start that, would you guys like me to turn the recording off?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, I'm doing that now.